now covering the Mid-American Conference for our friends at the Toledo Blade. His name is Dave Briggs. You can find him on Twitter. We love the Twitter. Find him there, argue on Twitter, or X, or whatever you want to call it, at D Briggs Blade. Dave, my man, good morning to you. How are you? How's life? How are things, partner?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on, man.
This is great. I was reading your feature piece about the Mid-American Conference, and I of course, about broke my screen trying to click it and trying to figure out exactly what in the world happened to the Mid-American Conference. And I thought you did a really great job. I'm gonna tweet your tweet to the link so our listeners can read it as well, because it affects all of our directional schools that are within our listening range, whether it's Eastern, Central, or Western Michigan, and then of course the two schools in Ohio that are Toledo and Bowling Green that are in our neighborhood as well. And every once in a while, Dave, I'll go through and do like the net in the Ken Pom rankings for the Big Ten and the Mid-American Conference. And the slow decline or rapid decline in recent memory, what, in your opinion, took place post-2019, where, as you wrote, in 2019, the MAC is a neighborhood featured with a gated manor at the top of a hill in Buffalo, a few big houses with backyard cabanas tended by pool boys, Toledo, Bowling Green, and Kent State, and a thriving middle class. What happened since then?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And then, like you mentioned, I mean, first of all, it's I would say it probably shouldn't have been as good as it was in 2019, and it should be nowhere near where it is right now. I mean, if you go back to 2019, eighth in the net out of 32 leagues, just behind the Pac-12, which I believe only got 2 teams in the tournament that year, and ahead of the Atlantic 10 and the Mountain West and the league with Gonzaga and St. Mary's and a couple of those other good teams, West Coast Conference. So pretty damn good in 2019, and just on the brink of getting 2 teams into the tournament, with second team as an large. Now you go and look at it's 23rd in the net, 24th in Ken Pom, and yeah, I think a lot of things have happened. I mean, for one, the obvious one is the free agency era, the transfer portal, NIL. It has not been very good to the MAC. And I think in a way the MAC's reputation as one of the strongest mid-major leagues has worked against it in a big way. The top leagues are viewing them as the top minor league that you go to look for your talent. If you look at just just last year, out of the 15 players who were on the 3 all-MAC teams, first, second, third, 8 were eligible to return. Only 2 came back, and 5 transferred, and Amani Bates went to the NBA. And those transfers included some really good players, including the MAC Player of the Year at Toledo, and Ray J. Dennis. So I feel like that's a big one. Obviously, teams in the MAC aren't going to be able to compete with the NIL collectives at the bigger schools, and they have a lot of really good players that they're going after. MAC schools are going to be able to hang on to a lot of them. Toledo's done a really good job and won 3 straight MAC regular season titles, in the hunt for a 4th. With the exception of Ray J. Dennis, they've done a really good job of hanging on to their top players. They have a lot of guys people would want, and the culture there and foundation has allowed them to do some good things. So not saying it's a lost cause for MAC schools. You can build continuity. You can do some good things, and the transfer portal works both ways. It's helped Toledo as well. So that's one thing, the NIL free agency era. Another thing I think is just the nature of it's just if you're just looking at the metrics, and the metrics are what matter getting into the NCAA tournament, and that's what the committee looks at. The scheduling by MAC teams has just been atrocious, with the exception of some teams at the top. You look at the bottom teams, Central Michigan, for instance, it's a fairly representative schedule from some of these teams. The athletic directors, the presidents are telling the basketball coach, hey, you got to raise X amount of dollars. And, they played 5 bye games, 5 guarantee games on the road. And, that's not the ideal schedule. Toledo, for instance, on the other end, you look at Ohio, the Rockets, I think, only had one bye game on the road at West Virginia. And then, I'm sorry, are you there?
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm here. I'm listening because I'm looking at these. I'm looking at these bye games right now, Dave, and I'm looking at for the net rankings, which the NCAA has constructed to break everything into quadrants in trying to get through who's a quad one game and how does that move into quad two later on in the season. The whole thing is preposterous to me. But the entire MAC as a whole does not have a single quadrant one win. The entire conference as a whole has what, 3 quadrant 2 wins? At some point, if you do schedule 5 bye games, at some point you got to show up and make it shake a little bit. You got to win one of these things, Dave.
Oh no, absolutely. No, I'm sorry. I thought I lost you before I heard something. But no, it's absolutely it's crazy, and I don't think, but they're not scheduling these games to win, and that's the problem. And you look at that, you're scheduling five road bye games, and then next thing you know, maybe you need 2 or 3 non-D1 games at home to make up, to offset that, because you do need home games. You can't just play all your games on the road. I guess you could, but and then next thing you know, you're going into the MAC schedule with 2 or 3 Division I wins, and that just kills the metrics. And you're not necessarily a bad team if you're say you schedule 6 games against Big 12 and Big 10 teams, and then 2 non-D1 games at home out of your 10 or 11 or 12 non-conference games. Might have 2 non-conference wins or 2 D1 wins. Not necessarily a bad team. You've just scheduled horribly. You haven't prepared yourself. You've tanked the metrics of the league. And next thing you know, combined with other factors like the transfer portal and the NIL and everything, and some of this is just cyclical. I mean, there's 5 first or second year coaches in the MAC, but I would say it just does not entirely feel cyclical either. So, and then you end up with 24th out of 32 leagues, right down there with some of those like America East and Atlantic Sun and these traditionally low major leagues you see on TV at the end of the year that are playing their conference championship games in high school sized gyms. So it's just a very, very odd company the MAC is keeping right now, and certainly not where they want to be.
They recently had like this MAC Sunbelt challenge. Like I used to love the Big Ten ACC challenge. Obviously, that has changed a little bit. You have the Gavitt games. Like you have some of these back and forths where conferences team up and they say, hey, we're going to get some really good games and we'll go, we'll try to rotate it. You try to find a conference that has, similar number of teams so everybody can play. In some years, your guys will play. In some years, you'll have an off year and you won't be able to participate because that's, the conferences are different sizes. Do you think that the MAC should do more of this? I know that, Toledo recently played App State out of the Sun Belt, but, should they go and try to take on the Missouri Valley? Is there any value in that, or the Ohio Valley, or something that makes sense, maybe even the Mountain West, right? Because we look at the MAC and the Mountain West and the Sun Belt similarly, maybe even Conference USA in football terms. Should we look to do more of that conference-wide and getting some of these tournaments or games, if you will, on the schedule to kind of beef up some of our, non-high major opponents?
Sure. No, I mean, I think there's value in that. And I asked, John Steinbrecher, the commissioner of the MAC, was the main reason you did this Sun Belt Challenge to basically force the teams to basically force good games on the schedule that the teams otherwise would not do, kind of put them in a hostage situation here and say, you're doing this? He said, no, obviously they are trying to get better games, but they've been trying for a decade to find a partner. And so they certainly have looked at, I would have to assume, the Missouri Valley. I mean, that would be a good partner, although they do play a lot of Missouri Valley teams in the non-conference. But the Sun Belt is a league that the MAC would view as slightly below it. Obviously not this year. The Sun Belt is significantly better, but it's a good, unique partner. I don't know. I think it just has to. The teams just the schools need to take it upon themselves to have some respect and schedule some good games here. I did like this is going back 20 years, but the Bracket Busters games kind of made sense where for the top teams, you pair them in February, like at the top team in the MAC versus the top team in the Valley, or the second place team in the MAC versus the top team in the Sun Belt, whatever. Put the top mid-major mid-major teams together in a non-conference game in February. I don't necessarily know the point of the MAC Sun Belt Challenge for doing a home and home series. I guess if you want to do a one-off each year and have them play in November like they did, all the Sun Belt teams played in MAC cities in November. I don't necessarily know the point of returning that in February. I don't know why all the MAC teams need to go to Sun Belt schools in the middle of the conference race. And maybe I could see it if it's just for the top two teams, but why is the 11th place team in the MAC traveling down south to play the 11th place team in the Sun Belt? I mean, that just seems kind of like just pretty pointless. So, but yeah, it's just I think it just goes back to the schedule. I mean, teams have to schedule smarter. In 2012, I believe, the MAC put together a commission. They didn't mandate the teams have to schedule 15 home games, but they did put a significant financial incentive in it, and teams started to do it. That was one of the reasons why the metrics started to get good. It reached as high as 8th out of 32 leagues in 2019. But the last few years, schools have really gotten away from it. And we end up in situations where some schools are scheduling as few as 12, 13 home games now.
You know, Dave Briggs joined us from the Toledo Blade. Find him on Twitter, DBriggsBlade. Make sure you click on that article to read more about the Mid-American Conference and their slow decline, or rapid decline on the national landscape. Dave, I'm very interested in the NIT, because that has been a place that, both of us are very familiar with in recent memory. And for the upcoming 2024 NIT, the conference regular season champions that do not win their conference tournament or are otherwise selected to the NCAA Division I men's basketball championship will not receive an automatic bid to the NIT. This to me is like, now they've just said, hey, the heck with that. We're going to go after the big name teams, the big name schools, and we're going to try to boost this thing back up. But that actually hurts teams like a Toledo in the Mid-American Conference if they can't automatically get in, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's on one hand, it's an absolute joke. I mean, you're rewarding and Toledo coach Todd Kowalczyk has always said the NIT is even more rigged than the NCAA tournament, and I'm just paraphrasing him there. But in terms of the favoritism towards bigger schools, I mean, the NCAA tournament, in theory, and I would say the committee does a pretty good job of selecting who they think are the best teams. You can argue with some power conference bias, of course, on the bubble, and I would very much argue that. But they're picking who they think are the best at-large teams in the field. The NIT doesn't even pretend. I mean, they're picking the biggest brands. They're picking who they think will be the biggest draws on TV. They're thinking about the finals at Madison Square Garden or Las Vegas or Indy, wherever the heck the finals are now. They want good schools that they think are going to draw ratings and bring attention to the tournament. So you're going to get more power conference schools. To offset that, they've had the clause in there that if you win your conference tournament but don't win, or if you win your regular season in a mid-major conference but don't win your conference tournament in a one-bid league, you still get an automatic bid. As you mentioned, they've taken that away. It's a complete joke, but at the same time, on the other hand, the NIT is kind of a joke, so it doesn't offend me that much if you miss the NIT, because it's like big deal. People might think it's a big deal to make the NIT if you're a school like Toledo, and it kind of is. I mean, it's nice. But I mean, let's not pretend that every year Toledo makes the NIT, they're incredibly devastated to be in the NIT because they're just coming off the conference tournament. So on one hand, it's a joke that the teams like Toledo and Akron and Kent State and Bowling Green and the Michigan schools are going to be disrespected like this. At the same time, I can't be too offended that teams are missing the NIT. Where the real insanity and where I would take extreme offense is to the suggestion of taking away the large bids to the automatic bids to the conference or the NCAA tournament, and if you mess with that in any way, so
that brings me to the biggest question ever. That brings me to the biggest question ever, since both of us, being in the MAC here. Like, do you want to reward the team that's been the best for, 3 to 4 months, or the team that's been the best for 3 to 4 games during conference tournament championship week? I know why championship week exists, right? It's great television. It makes for wonderful theater, but it would put more emphasis on the regular season had they send the regular season champion to the NCAA tournament. So what say you? Do you like conference tournament week, or do you want to see the regular season champ get into the NCAA tournament?
I don't know. I mean, I'm very, very conflicted on this. I mean, that's the age-old question. I mean, it's obviously. I mean, it's harder to, in a league like the MAC with so much parity and a lot of good teams to the top. It's certainly harder to be the best team over a course of 3 months. And Toledo's obviously the poster child for this. I mean, 3 straight MAC regular season outright championships, never been done before in the league's modern history. Just an incredible accomplishment, and I think we can all agree that's 10 times harder than making a one-off run and getting hot one weekend in March. So yeah, you would like to see that rewarded. At the same time, the conference tournaments are awesome. I mean, the drama of the conference tournaments almost are the NCAA tournament in a way, that just starting a week earlier and knowing it's single elimination, I don't know, in a sporting sense, the life or death feel of every play in these games at the MAC tournament do add a special feeling. I mean, this is the tension, the joy, the agony, just everything in the electricity in the air in Cleveland is a special magical March mix. So, and that's a fun scene too. I mean, this means everything to the teams there. And if you just had the regular season winner go, and say the team won by 3 games, and then you didn't have a conference tournament after that, and that would render a lot of the season completely meaningless. Whereas now, yeah, you're not completely rewarding the regular season winner, but you do have every team, at least the top 8 teams who make it to Cleveland, feel like they have a chance to get to punch that magical ticket. So I don't know. I'm very conflicted. I think it's at some point you just gotta embrace what it is. The regular season is a great accomplishment, but it's also for seeding for the MAC tournament, which is ultimately where it counts most in today's culture. And I don't know. I think I like the current setup, but I certainly appreciate how it can seem unfair.
And I'll tell you what, in the words of the great late Al Davis, just win, baby. His name is Dave Briggs. Find him on Twitter at @DBriggsBlade. Dave, my friend, thank you so much for the time this morning, partner. We greatly appreciate you.
Hey, thanks, man. See you soon, Anthony.
I can't wait. I will see you soon. Freddie wants to know how Dave would feel about Michigan being in the NIT. He just loves Michigan. And be sure to click on that article as well. I just tweeted out the link to it, too. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. X's and Bros, Michigan Sports Network.
Imagine this.